with regard to the standards, I didn't see anything in this non-treaty treaty agreement with regard to benchmarks or accountability. So how would we know that 500 million, billion dollar, trillion, whatever the number is just going to grow exponentially, is actually being put to good use? Is there any way to judge whether or not countries are complying or whether or not there's actual progress being made? And again, I'm not a climate change denier, Mr. Kirpin. I believe the climate changes every day. My air conditioning just kicked on in the studio. The climate just changed. And I believe most people want to leave the campground a little nicer than the way they found it. But how can this administration or future administrations hold us to something that we're not holding others to without any degree of accountability? We're only going to hurt ourselves more in our competitiveness internationally.
Well, that's one of the many design flaws with this agreement, is that it relies on countries sort of self-enforcing their own commitments. And in a lot of countries, they'll just say, "Hey, we met our emissions reductions targets," and they'll just lie. Besides the fact that India and China, are not held to nearly the standard we are in this agreement, it's also, given the state of economic record-keeping and environmental record-keeping in those countries, it's pretty easy for them to just lie. Whereas in the United States, as you know, when we make a commitment, unless we can reverse it politically, we're pretty much going to keep it, even if it's very, very expensive. And so under this agreement, we're not going to have another coal plant built in this country, as long as we're a party to this agreement. And meanwhile, other countries don't necessarily take compliance as seriously as we do.
And when it doesn't make sense on paper, and when it doesn't make sense economically, then they roll out the terms like morally and socially justifiable. I was reading this op-ed piece by John Sutter, CNN opinion piece, talking about this issue. And he said, if we don't do something, the planet's going to be unlivable for future generations. Warming threatens to drown coastal cities, push animals into extinction, decrease crop yields in certain regions, and encourage the spread of disease. He goes, symbolically, the agreement shows something that has never been apparent before. The world is united on this issue. We finally are starting to recognize we have a moral responsibility to act. And I heard that with regard to increasing the minimum wage, paid parental leave, from Governor Cuomo of New York, Governor Brown of California, where he said minimum wage may not make sense economically, but it makes sense morally, socially, and politically. So the numbers don't matter to these people because they think we have a moral compulsion to do this, that we're responsible to this, even if it causes us to be irresponsible in how we're going about doing it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big disconnects for me with the whole liberal worldview. This idea that we can judge morality and what's right on the basis of intentions rather than results. I totally reject that view. And to me, what's immoral is making energy much more expensive, which is what this agreement and pretty much all of the global warming taxes and regulations that have been proposed do. And the idea that we're going to make energy much more expensive immediately in the near term, which hits lower income people especially hard, of course, because more of their household budget goes to energy. The idea that we're going to do that on the basis that it may have benefits 100, 200, 300 years from now in computer models, that is what's immoral to me. Not the idea that, we ought to just look at our wonderful good intentions, and that's more important than the actual consequences and costs of these policies. So I think they've got it exactly backwards, as they do on so many issues, including the minimum wage issue, but of course that's why I'm not a liberal.
Phil Kirpin is with us on the program. He's the president of American Commitment, author of the book Democracy Denied. And in your book, you talk about Obama's unilateral regulatory actions, his signing authorities, the executive actions. Way back when, didn't President Obama say, under my plan, your electricity rates will necessarily skyrocket? So it's not as if he's telling us anything new. He pretty much told us what he was planning on doing. I was listening to Bernie Sanders in his town hall today on MSNBC talking about how the Republicans are just obstructionists. They just say no, they just say no, they just say no. Well, sometimes when you see something like this, you have to say no because the numbers don't add up. The data doesn't lie. People lie about the data. And then when that all falls apart for them, they say, we have a moral and a social responsibility, to get